Howdy. This is the Views from the Shop podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, Tim Miller. And today we are live on YouTube on this Tuesday evening, December 16th, 2025. And I wish you a very, very, very happy Barbie and Barney Backlash Day. On today's show, we are taking advantage of some additional time afforded to us this week, where Ohio State has another week off here before their next game against North Carolina. So that said, we're 10 games into the season, a pretty easy spot right now where we can really review where is Ohio State currently, what direction do we think we're going in, and of course, the biggest thing here is I want to answer the questions that you've got on Ohio State basketball. So if you want to get featured, if you want your questions answered, and if you just have overall thoughts on the team right now, you can feel free to ask those questions in the chat, either on Twitter or on YouTube. I will get to those as they come. So appreciate you being here. I know this show probably completely out of the blue for most of you. So if you made it here today, appreciate it a bunch. Please like the tweet if you're watching on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, please like the video here on YouTube as well and subscribe on YouTube. Of course, you should subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and you can get in the Substack as well. I dropped a rather lengthy, just intel, I guess, note today in the Views from the Shop podcast Substack. I will post just the general link here as well, so you've got it. You can subscribe for free. You can upgrade your knowledge and news access to Ohio State basketball by subscribing to the chat as well. Get a free week from me should you choose. Just ask me for that. So I dropped a lot of nuggets today. Had a conversation with someone for about 45 minutes. They just gave me a call and I answered, because that's what you should do when you get a call like that. So dropped a lot of info that I had there. Nothing that's really necessarily groundbreaking or world earth shattering or anything like that, but definitely a lot of stuff that's really, really good that you're just not going to find anywhere else. So highly recommend that you get there. So today on this show, I'm going to try to go less than 30 minutes. Going to try to make it pretty quick here, but I just want to walk through where is Ohio State basketball right now and also address the questions that you've got so far that have come through. I see a bunch here from Aaron, so we will get to some of these questions for sure. And again, if you just have thoughts, if you have comments on Ohio State basketball at this point, throw them in there. I'm happy to address your comments, address your concerns, address your questions, all of those types of things as well. So you can drop that in the chat. But please do like the tweet on Twitter if that's where you're watching, or like it on YouTube as well if you're watching there. So the Buckeyes, 10 games in, and they're 8-2. This is probably, if you came into the season and you learned that Ohio State would start the year 8-2 with one win in Big Ten play and one loss in Big Ten play, I feel like a lot of people really wouldn't complain about that necessarily. And yet here we are, winning 8 of 10, and the fan base pretty riled up as per usual, upset with rotations, upset with players getting played over other players, starting lineup stuff, upset over Coach Diebler, upset over loss against Illinois and the loss to Pitt, and the win against West Virginia, the win against Notre Dame. People still complaining about that as well. Maybe that's just what I'm seeing on Twitter, and people are highly, highly negative there on Twitter compared to everywhere else, but that's what I've seen so far. So my general thoughts on the team right now, and my perspective on the team right now, is that sitting at 8-2, they have an opportunity here against North Carolina coming up on Saturday to really make a statement this year. This is really their main non-conference game to make a statement, because Notre Dame, Pitt, West Virginia, all those games, they're fine, but none of them have the gravity that the North Carolina game has at this point. North Carolina is ranked in the AP Top 25. Not that we on this show care about that, but even the predictive metrics with Ken Pom and Bart Torvik see North Carolina as a really, really good team so far this season. They've definitely been better than I expected. And it's an opportunity for Ohio State to really put its name on the map in college basketball here on Saturday. You have the non-conference game against Virginia. That one is on Valentine's Day. We're going to pretty much know what Ohio State is at that point, even if it's just they're consistently inconsistent, we'll know who they are at that point. So knowing that, it's really this game. This is the one in the non-conference. This is the one that a lot of fans will watch who really partake in Ohio State football the most. And then they see, well, Ohio State's playing North Carolina. It's at 3:00. I don't care to watch Ole Miss and Tulane, so I'll tune into Ohio State basketball and see how they do. So the Buckeyes have a chance to kind of introduce themselves to the Major League Football fans for potentially the first time, and also to the nation. This is the first time where fans outside of Columbus will have the opportunity to see Ohio State basketball this year. They'll see Jake Diebler at head coach. They'll see Bruce Thornton again and probably say, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. Seems like he's been there forever. And they'll learn about Devin Royal. They'll learn about Amari Bynum and so on and so forth. But this is a big opportunity for Ohio State coming up this weekend. So as far as it goes for me right now, I would say Ohio State is in an okay spot. I don't think you can really complain about being 8-2. Sure, you'd love to be 10-0. Obviously, once you get through 31 games, you'd love to be 31-0. And after you get through the Big Ten tournament, you'd love to have 0 losses there too. It's just not going to happen year in and year out. It's very rarely, if ever, really going to happen in this new landscape of college basketball. So at 8-2, I think they're fine. I think Bruce Thornton is proving that he's still Bruce Thornton. He's going to play 40 minutes per game. Whether you like it or not, he's going to play in every single moment in every single big game this season. Unless he somehow finds his way into foul trouble, which somehow he hasn't in all the minutes he's played and all the games he's played. He's never in foul trouble. He's going to produce as a three-point shooter. He's going to produce scoring at the rim and in the paint. And he's going to be kind of the heart of the Ohio State offense. When John Mobley Jr. is forcing shots, or maybe the shots that go up, they don't feel that natural. When Devin Royal can't get going, when Brandon Knoll can't get going, when Christoph Tilley, he can score in the paint, but he doesn't have the three-point shot. It's always going to come back to Bruce Thornton and how good he can be and how well he can support Ohio State this season and his final year with the Buckeyes. So I think overall, Ohio State is in a spot where it's still just so wait and see. Really, none of the games that they've played so far this year are against opponents that I think are very good. I don't think West Virginia is good. I don't think Notre Dame is good. I don't think Pitt is good. I think West Virginia is probably the best out of the 3 teams that they played, and luckily they beat them. You should, by the way, be rooting for West Virginia and Notre Dame and Pitt to win games this year because it makes Ohio State look better. Obviously, I think West Virginia has a chance to be a pretty good team this year and push for an NCAA tournament spot. But in terms of like overall, are they a good team in the way that Illinois is a good team? No, they don't compare to Illinois. I don't think, at least. So with the sample size we have so far from Ohio State and just a lack of high quality competition they played so far, that's why this North Carolina game is so big for Ohio State. So let's get some questions here that people have got. I'll kind of cycle through these as best as I can. Again, if you have questions, ask your questions. Throw them in the chat. If you just got comments that you want me to kind of piggyback off of and speak to that, I will do that as well. But let's see here. First question, we'll go to Aaron. You can see this if you're watching live. Aaron, thanks for the question here. Can Tayson Chapman crack the rotation solely off his play and not prompted by foul trouble or other unforeseen circumstances? Well, I think that Ohio State would love to get some scoring going off the bench. I know it's something a lot of fans have spoken about. I've said before, I don't really know how much it matters as long as Ohio State is scoring a bunch of points. I don't really care if it comes from the starting lineup or if it comes from the bench. Like, that doesn't really matter to me necessarily. And I just messed up my video here, so just 1 second on that. Sorry. But it overall, like, again, I don't think it really matters either way, kind of what you get from the bench scoring and things like that when it comes to if it's coming from Tayson Chapman, if it's coming from Amari Bynum, wherever it comes from, I don't think it matters. I think more so what matters is that the offense is moving smoothly. However, Tayson Chapman, I think, is a guy that Ohio State would love to get going here off the bench. I think that you saw that in those 6 minutes against West Virginia where he did show something for Ohio State. And then he didn't get back in the game. So my thought this whole year, and I think Ohio State would say the same, is that things just aren't quite clicking yet for Tayson Chapman this year. He doesn't play with a super high amount of energy and intensity. So when he gets in there, I think the leash is probably pretty long for them. They probably want him to go in there and score and get shots up when he's coming off the bench and when he's playing with guys like Gabe Cupps and Colin White, who maybe aren't offensive focuses for Ohio State. They'd like to see Chasen Chapman get more. I think he can crack the rotation. I think it still remains to be seen if he's going to actually do it. But it's definitely possible, and I think it's something that Ohio State would love to have happen here. So that's my answer to that question, Aaron. Let's get into a question here from @RolePlayers24. What needs to happen for us to beat North Carolina? Well, I have watched a fair amount of North Carolina already this year. And unfortunately, I'm just going to have to be wrong in my opinion that North Carolina is not good. Coming into the season, I said, I made it pretty obvious. I said, I don't think North Carolina is a very good basketball team. Looking at their roster, it wasn't a team that I was all that afraid of coming into this season. Unfortunately, I think I'm wrong on that. I think North Carolina is probably a pretty good basketball team. I think you look at Caleb Wilson, you look at Henry Vasar there in the front court. Those are two players who do their roles really, really well. Now, is Wilson, he's a freshman, so he doesn't necessarily have the play strength that maybe other players have playing at the 4 in college basketball this year. But this is a really, really skilled team. You look at Jonathan Powell, West Virginia transfer. He hit some shots when North Carolina went in and beat Kentucky a couple weeks ago in that game. So I think North Carolina overall, they're a very good team. I think this could potentially be the best non-conference team that they play this year. It's either going to be them or Virginia. But in order to beat them, to answer that question, I think very light, and I'll get into a full game breakdown on this probably on Thursday of this week. I think number one, they're going to have to run with them offensively. This is a pretty good offense in North Carolina this year. Let me look at their actual metrics here. So North Carolina so far this year, they're averaging 81.1 points per game. Their offensive rating is 118.8. So that's not elite or earth-shattering, but it is really good. And they do a lot of really good things, I think, off the ball, whether it be the pick and roll action and looking at the open side or the backside player to be able to score, or even just back cuts, things like that where you have action happening away from the ball. That's where North Carolina is really good. So Ohio State defensively, they're going to have to keep their heads on swivels when it comes to defending North Carolina. They're also super multiple, very similar to Illinois, where it's versatile players who can spread you out and who can space the floor. So that's going to be tough for them. I think in order for Ohio State to win this game, they're going to have to hit some threes. That's what I've been saying for a lot of different games so far this year, is that I think that's an area of opportunity for Ohio State. They're going to have to hit some threes. They're going to have to control North Carolina in the front court. They're a solid rebounding team as well. Let's see what their numbers are here. They're averaging 30.5 defensive rebounds per game. That's 99th percentile in college basketball this year. So they're rebounding the ball really, really well. And then you also look at if Seth Trimble is going to be back in this game. I don't know the answer to that. It sounded like he was not going to be back for the Ohio State game when the injury initially happened. Now it sounds like there's a really good shot that he's going to be able to play. So this is a deep team in North Carolina. I guess they're well coached. I don't know with Hubert Davis. I would say so, but you're going to have to be able to keep your head on a swivel defensively. And then on the offensive side, North Carolina is really good defensively as well. Their defensive rating this year is 94.8. That's really, really good. And again, they're a very good defensive rebounding team. They're not going to steal a bunch against Ohio State. They're not going to have the splash plays with blocking shots and things like that. But it's a cohesive unit defensively. They play with a lot of length. They play with a lot of skill and athleticism. So it's going to be tough guard for Ohio State in that one. So I'll get into that more later on. I'll get another question here from @RolePlayers24. So question here is any update on Josh that you've heard of at the moment? Josh Ojawuna, transfer in from Baylor, 7-foot center. Ohio State would love to have him on the floor. I think I've shared this in the Substack already, the exclusive Substack for those of you who really want the insider news. I know that there's a tweet out there that he is redshirting officially. That's not accurate. He's not officially redshirting. There's one person at least who is around the program. Is as specific as I'd like to be, who would say, I don't think he's going to play this year, and has maintained that thought process since he got to Ohio State, but there's no decision that's been made on Josh Ojawuna at this point. He's ramping up. He's getting on the floor. That's as far as we can go at this point. No decision has been made yet on if he's going to play this year or not. I lean toward he's not going to play, but there's nothing official. There's nothing definitive. And I was also told by someone that it's not going to be someone who breaks the news other than Ohio State breaking the news, which maybe, but watch out for Adam Jardy. I feel like Adam Jardy would be the type to break that type of news. So we'll see on that. But right now, there's nothing new there really on Josh Ojawuna. They're still trying to ramp him up. All right, let's see if I can find another question here that I want to grab. And then again, if you have comments, if you have thoughts, anything like that, feel free to drop those in there. Let's get to a question here. Is Christoph Tilley crossing the line of potentially being a disappointing pickup? I don't think I was the only one, but there were a lot of people in the offseason who really spoke highly of Christoph Tilley. From I think Joey Lane going to practices. I think he probably shared a lot on Christoph Tilley. I think Adam Jardy, whoever else out there who talks about Ohio State basketball, we all had thoughts on Christoph Tilley, and we're told he looks really, really good. And I think we came off a high in the summer where he did look really good. And unfortunately, he's kind of leveled out to this point to where he's not been able to take that step out on the floor for Ohio State. The three-point shooting I talk about all the time on this show, it's not been good enough. Christoph Tilley has not been close to good enough for Ohio State at this point, shooting from the three-point line. They don't want him to stop. Is the leash going to shorten a little bit on him and his three-point shooting? I think so. But I think what you've seen in the past couple days is he's been more timid shooting from the three-point line. Past couple days, I mean past couple games for Ohio State. He's just been more timid and a little bit less aggressive shooting three balls, where you feel like if it was game 2 or game 3, he's taking that shot, whereas now you're seeing him not attempt those shots from deep. So he rushed one against Illinois when Ohio State was playing like they got their head cut off and were just kind of running around randomly and anxiously in that one. He forced up a 3 in that game. And outside of that, I don't think the shot selection has been all that bad. The good thing with Christoph Tilley that I think we need to remember, and I guess we should pull up his stats now, I guess. But when you look at Christoph Tilley, actually, yeah. So his numbers right now, his points per 40 are insane. He's averaging 20 points per game, per 40 minutes. He's averaging 4.1 assists per 40 minutes, and he's averaging 8.8 rebounds per 40 minutes. If you just look at where Ohio State is right now and where Christoph Tilley is in comparison to everyone else on the team, points per game, he's in second place. In 2-point percentage, he's in 5th and still shooting above 60%, which is really, really good. If you look at offensive rebounds per game, he's in 3rd. Defensive rebounds per game, he's in 2nd. You know who leads the team in defensive rebounds per game this season, by the way? It's Bruce Thornton for some stupid reason, which should not be the case. So he's providing the counting stats for Ohio State at this point. I think we still need to remember Christoph Tilley is 2nd on the team in scoring right now. He's still producing at a high level, rebounding. He's still able to score in the paint. He's able to get to the free throw line. So I know we really talked up Christoph Tilley in the offseason. Maybe he's not performing to that level yet that you wanted him to be at, but I don't think that the book is closed at all on Christoph Tilley. We can still absolutely have hope for him so far this year. Let's get to another question here. What do we make of the Gabe Cupps and Colin White dynamic that is good defensively, but not on the offensive side? Chapman and Grew being offensively focused, but not defensively great. How do we get the best of both worlds? Well, that's something that Ohio State is figuring out right now. This week, I can tell you, they have been focused at a very, very high level on what rotation is best for us to get the most out of our guys. There's a focus right now internally on how do we become a better first half team. You look at the Illinois game, you look at the West Virginia game, you look at the Pitt game. Those are a couple games that stick out where Ohio State wasn't very good in the first half. The Northwestern game, Ohio State was not good in the first half. They trailed by 4, and it felt like we were lucky to be down by 4 at that point if we're Ohio State. So I think that right now Ohio State is really trying to figure out, especially with the time that they have, the extra time that they have between West Virginia and North Carolina, they're trying to figure out what rotations are best for us. How can we get Taysom Chapman going? Can we get Grew minutes? It's a question. I think the answer right now is probably not. Looking at Gabe Cupps, what does he give for you offensively? I think that they would tell you that they expected more from him offensively. They weren't expecting him to come in and score 8 points per game off the bench, but they were expecting more than what they've gotten so far offensively. But defensively, he's been solid. So they're trying to find the right mix of these guys are really good with the ball in their hands. These guys are really solid creating with the ball or without the ball in their hands. These guys can step up and defend. How do we mix in the guys who can defend with the guys who can score and get off to better starts in the first half and ultimately be in a better spot rotationally as the game goes on? So I think that's something that Ohio State's really focused on. I think, again, Gabe Cupps, Colin White, they are who they are. They're solid defensive players who aren't going to give you a lot offensively. I think if Colin White played 28 minutes per game, I think fans would be a lot more impressed with him offensively. It's just tough. When you have the limited playing time that you do, it's tough to really stick out. And the times that he's stuck out this year, it's been when he's created defensively and then went and finished a dunk on the other end. That's kind of what Colin White does. He's super explosive. He's super long, so he has the ability to do that. But it's hard to do it consistently when you're not playing a bunch of minutes every game. So I think, again, Ohio State knows who they have in Colin White. They know who they have in Gabe Cupps. They're trying to mix and match these pieces the best way that they can at this point to be in position to win, to get off to a good start in the first half. And when we're 25, 35 minutes into the game, be ready to close out a game or be in it regardless. Looks like a comment here from @BrodyKnowsBall. He's probably a good follow on Twitter, but you wouldn't hear that from me. He says, I think if you look at Ohio State, Ohio State has played poorly in the first half of every game against a high major team. That's true. It's true. It's so funny. Some of this stuff isn't necessarily rocket science. The thing is, it's the why behind it that I think a lot of fans would probably struggle to articulate, and that I would as well. I'm not in the building. I don't have the basketball mind that those on the staff or the players do or anything like that. But as you try to figure out where does Ohio State stand so far this year, there's a lot of things that we can say, but we struggle to peel back the layers and say why this is happening. I don't know why Ohio State has struggled in the first half in a lot of their major games so far this season, but I will say inside the shot, it is something that they are thinking about actively. Probably this very second as I speak to you, it's on the mind of someone within that building, even if they aren't in the building right now. I know that there's some visits being paid to some recruits in the class of 2028 potentially right now as well. But all that said, it's something that they think about. It's something that they think through. They wrestle with. So yeah, I agree. Ohio State has not been good in the first half. It's really hurt them at times. You look at the Illinois game, they lost the game, by 8 points, I think. They never trailed by much more than 8 or 10 or 12. I think that was the most they trailed by. They were never out of it. They were never really in it. I don't think Illinois ever felt nervous about where they were, but I don't think that Illinois felt the game was going to get away from them. Ohio State never felt like the game was getting away from them either. They just couldn't get a lead. And then when they did get a lead, they lost it very quickly. So I think, again, the first half is something that they focus on for sure, and they'll try to be better. That's something to watch for in North Carolina. What if Ohio State's up by 5 at the end of the first half? That'll be big for Ohio State. All right, let's see if I can pull up another question here. Again, any thoughts, any comments you've got, I'll try to hit them all here. I probably won't be able to, but I will do the best that I can here. Another question here on John Mobley Jr. I'm trying to hit every player that I can, I think, as well. Does John Mobley Jr. deserve less leash? The answer is no. I don't think that he deserves less leash. I think what we're seeing from John Mobley Jr. right now is he is struggling to score in phase, in system for Ohio State this year. Well, if you look at what he did last year, a lot of his scoring was, I'm open, so I'm pulling it and I'm shooting it. Or I'm stepping into a shot because no one's got a hand on me and I'm going to take it. And it was less scoring in the half court. It was more so scoring either in transition or scoring when a guy sags off you or scoring when a guy gets doubled and they're skipping the pass to you in the corner and you can hit a three. I think that's where John Mobley Jr. scored a lot. So now he's got to learn how to develop his ability to score within the structure of the offense. I think that's something that he's struggled with so far this year and something that they're looking to help him improve on. I don't think he deserves less leash. Now, defensively, again, there are plays. I think Taysom Chapman, John Mobley Jr., you can throw in the bucket of you need to get them going early offensively. If you don't, you're not going to get anything from them. I think John Mobley Jr. is a player you got to get him going early so that he locks in defensively and he locks in offensively, and he doesn't get to the point where he's 3 of 10 from deep at the end of the game, because you can shoot that many threes in a game, that's fine, but if your sheer 3-point attempt number is going to be that high, then you got to make more threes as well. I think overall, like if you're a 30% 3-point shooter and you're taking the amount that Kristoff Tilly's taken, I don't think you're really complaining about that. So no, I don't think the leash really needs to be shorter for John Mobley Jr. I think that he needs to continue to work on scoring within the structure of the offense. As a reminder, please do subscribe here on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not watching on YouTube, it's just Views from the Shop podcast on YouTube. I think it's what's the site here? I think it's just youtube.com/Views from the Shop podcast, probably something like that. You can find it pretty easily. So subscribe there, like the video on YouTube, and then also like the tweet as well. Any thoughts you have, any comments you have, I will address them here, and any questions you've got as well, make sure to ask those. Tell a friend. Season of giving. It's a Christmas season here on the Views from the Shop podcast. I got a snowman, whatever the heck that's called, sitting here with me in my basement. So we're all in on it. So tell a friend about the show. Give them that. Okay. Tell a friend. If you talk Ohio State hoops with anyone, they need to know about this show. My opinion. I am biased though. Where do we want to go from here? I see a couple more comments. I'm just going to read this one out loud. I think this is probably a retort to what I said, potentially. So easy to say, but I think Bruce to be more aggressive early in the game is important. Can't read that word because I have something covering up the screen. He lets the game come to him, but coming out and getting the team settled in the game is big. Yeah, I can't disagree with that whatsoever. Absolutely have to agree with that. And I talked about that in the West Virginia game. If you heard me talk with Mountaineer Paul, who apparently hates Ohio State, by the way, saw that video or that clip earlier today. Why'd you have me on the show, man? Mountaineer Paul's a very nice guy. If you ever want any West Virginia content, go there. But I said on that show, I said, look, they need to use Bruce Thornton. And then as I came into the recap show, I gave the analogy of Bruce Thornton is mama, and we are 5-year-old kid lost in the grocery store looking for mama. Like, we need to use Bruce Thornton as security, safety, comfort in games that are big, especially where you just need Bruce Thornton to get going. I think he got going against Illinois, and it still wasn't enough somehow. Although I will say, and I said this after the game too, where did he go in the second half? It's hard. You can't expect 24 points in each half from Bruce Thornton, but getting more than 10, I think, with how you started in the first half and kind of dialing back the aggression in the second, that was maybe not frustrating, but just something I wonder about, something I'm curious about. But all that said, I do think Ohio State needs to use Bruce Thornton early and get him going so he can kind of lead this offense. But it's true. If you've played basketball at any level, you know how much differently you play if you get a couple shots up early and you make a couple of shots early than if you're not getting touches or you start the game 0 for 3 or anything like that. I'm sure I never started a game 0 for 3 in my day, but maybe you did. And if so, you know, it's just a different mentally. It can get to you. It's no different here. I can tell you that for a fact. It's no different here for Ohio State. When John Mobley Jr., when Bruce Thornton, when Devin Royal, when they don't get their touches and they don't get their shots up early, it's not selfishness. That's not what I'm saying it is. I'm saying it's hard to get into a rhythm and a flow and get established in the game when you don't get that. So yeah, they need to get Bruce Thornton going early, and he needs to be aggressive because it feels like when he's aggressive, he can score on anyone. Doesn't matter. He'll score at will, especially in the overtime against West Virginia. That last shot he made, he was going to the paint. Everyone knew it. He tried to draw a foul. He didn't get the foul called, but he made the shot because he's just that good. And it feels like he has the opportunity to score. Whenever he has the opportunity, he's going to score. Now in the clutch, that's a different conversation, but we won't touch that right now. All right, another question here. Again, questions you've got, comments you've got. I'll try to address them all. Throw them in here. If you just have an opinion on Ohio State basketball, drop it in the chat. I'll tell you if I agree or disagree, or anything else college basketball related or otherwise. I don't care. Doesn't mean I'll address it, but I'll at least read it potentially. So it's a product on the court, not necessarily the results, but things like pace, offensive looks, and defensive schemes, what Jake and staff want or hoped for. That's a really good question that I honestly wouldn't have the answer to right now. I think that I did ask one question today in a conversation I had. I just said, how does this look? 10 games in, are you guys where you expected to be now compared to where you were in October? If you were to say 10 games in, you're 8-2, are you happy with that? And the answer was yes. They would be happy with where they're at, 8-2 right now. I think right now what they also focus on is self-inflicted wounds. It's I can tell you they had a bunch of clips from the Illinois game of just not grabbing a rebound or bad fouls or getting it up out of position defensively, where a lot of this stuff is self-inflicted, which means you can fix it. If you want to fix it, you can fix it. It's up to you to do it, but it can be done. So I think that they feel pretty encouraged right now with the fact that as you sit at 8-2, and it very easily, whether you want to admit this or not, inches away from 9-1. If that 3-point shot by Pitt is not made, you're sitting at 9-1, and then you can even force yourself to saying, you can twist my arm into saying 10-0, because if you look at how Ohio State played against Illinois and the fact that they had so many self-inflicted wounds that they went back and looked at on film as a team, I think that probably would lend you to say, yeah, I mean, sure, in a perfect world, they could be 10-0. But to answer the question of, is this where they wanted to be? I would say the answer would be yes. And you as fans, you can say, how dare they say that? Or they should want to be 10-0. Yeah, of course, they want to be 10-0. But a realistic expectation of 8-2, I don't think is something that they would complain about at this point. And I think that they look at the self-inflicted wounds, the mistakes that they make by themselves. It's not like the teams are just better than them. That is something that they look at to where they say, yeah, we can get better from here. Another question. What will Brandon Knoll's role be moving forward? What is his best fit on the team in your eyes outside of Northwestern? Way too inconsistent from a production standpoint. Yeah, I think that, again, I will continue to maintain, number one, that the starting lineup is not as important as who's in the final 5 minutes of the game. Number two, what Brandon Knoll provides is so much different from everyone else in the starting lineup. And number three, as a piggyback off of that, what Amari Bynum provides off the bench is so much different than what Brandon Knoll would provide off the bench, I think, for Ohio State. You look at Brandon Knoll, how he plays, and the way that he's able to score without the ball in his hands, get the ball in his hands, and then score instantly. That's not something Bruce Thornton can do. That's not something that John Mobley Jr. can do. Those guys, Devin Royal, they're scoring with the ball in their hands, and then they're making moves themselves. Whereas Brandon Knoll, a lot of times, is finding himself in advantageous positions before the ball is in his hands so that when he catches the pass from whomever, he can score. Whereas Amari Bynum, I think he has the ability to score a little bit more with the ball in his hands and find himself. You saw what he did all the time against West Virginia, keeping Ohio State in this game and partially allowing Ohio State to win the game was in large part due to what Amari Bynum was able to do, ducking in, getting the ball in his hands, pump fake, post move, drop step, spin move, reverse layup, all those different types of things that you have to do once the ball is in your hands. That's where you're getting yourself in a position to score, whereas I think Brandon Knoll's the opposite. So I think Brandon Knoll fits better with the starters, and Amari Bynum fits better with bench players for those reasons, because the bench players haven't shown the ability to be able to score by themselves on a consistent basis so far this year. I also think that you could start to see Brandon Knoll playing at the 5 this year. I think that's a possibility where you see Royal at the 3, you see Amari Bynum at the 4, and you see Brandon Knoll at the 5. I think it's absolutely possible, especially with, I don't know, the rotation with Christoph Tilley coming out 2-3 minutes into the first half and the second half against West Virginia. That was a little curious to me, but I don't know if it's a trust thing. I don't know if it's a load management thing because he's working through things or what the case may be. But all that said, I think that I prefer Knoll in the starting lineup. I think there's a very good chance that, well, I won't say very good chance. I will tell you that they are thinking through if Amari Bynum is going to start against North Carolina. And I'll also tell you they're thinking through what rotation is best for us moving forward, offensively, defensively. How do we get these guys in best position to score and to win? All right. If anyone has got any other questions, any other thoughts that they want to throw my way, they can feel free to do so now before I close this off. Again, if you're watching on Twitter, please like the tweet. I know that you're doing that. I don't even have to check Twitter because I see the viewership rising. It's not the most viewed show that we've ever done live, but that's okay. We're not in it for the views. That's just what the first word of this show is called, but we're not in it for that. I know that you're liking the tweets because we're getting more viewers and all those types of things. So like the tweet, even retweet it if you're into that. And also make sure you subscribe on YouTube. I'll come out with a show on Thursday morning previewing Ohio State against North Carolina, most likely Thursday morning at this point. Here we go. One last question, then we're out of here. I said under 30 minutes, I'm going to fail. I got to go to bed. So for North Carolina specifically, who matches up better on Caleb Wilson? Because I'm pretty sure Bynum matches up well with his energy and length, but obviously foul trouble could be an issue. I 100% agree. When I watched North Carolina play Kansas in the second game of the season, I believe it was for those teams, I watched that game and I instantly said, I am concerned about Brandon Knoll guarding Caleb Wilson. I want Amari Bynum guarding Caleb Wilson. That's my preference. You look at Bynum's his length, you look at his strength, you look at the tenacity he plays with, the motor that he plays with. He just, I mean, he gets out there and he would make a phenomenal delivery driver or a garbage man who like has to manually pick up the garbage and throw it in the trash, not the ones who cheat and just like have it automatically dumped in, but like the real manual work, he would do a great job of that, man. The motor that he plays with is absolutely phenomenal. And I think you need that against Caleb Wilson. Caleb Wilson can make shots over you. He can make shots fading away. Just incredibly acrobatic shots. Man, don't we all wish Ohio State would have landed him? They were in it. I don't know how in it they really were, but they were in it for Caleb Wilson. But I think that Amari Bynum is definitely a better defensive matchup on Caleb Wilson. And again, I think if you look back at West Virginia, you're starting to get the answer. In crunch time, Amari Bynum was the guy who was trusted. It was not Brandon Knoll. And I asked someone that about that after the game, and I don't remember what they said. I'm not going to try to find it now. But it was essentially, yeah, like we're working on trust with Brandon Knoll at this point. So everyone has certain levels of trust. Everyone has certain things that they need to work on. That's not saying that Brandon Knoll is in a bad spot right now for Ohio State or anything like that. But I would say that in this matchup specifically for North Carolina, for Caleb Wilson, he's going to be a problem. I want Amari Bynum on him as much as possible. Okay. Well, I appreciate you all for jumping in live. If you're listening late on podcast or watching late, welcome. And I hope you have a wonderful day on Wednesday, which is when you'll probably find it. I probably won't do these all that commonly once we get into Big Ten play because it's 2 games, boom, boom, back to back, bunch of shows. We don't have time for another open one like this throughout the week, but happy to do this for you now. So again, please like the tweet. Please like the video on YouTube. Please subscribe on YouTube as well. Highly, highly encourage that. We'll be back within the next couple of days here to preview Ohio State against North Carolina. Again, this is the only Ohio State basketball exclusive podcast covering the Buckeyes year-round, previewing and recapping every single game that Ohio State plays. And again, can't forget about the summer guest series. You want to hear from Coach Stiebler. You want to hear from other coaches on the staff. You want to hear from players. You want to hear from media members, all that stuff. You got to be around for that. So even when it is the offseason, we don't quit here on the Views from the Shop podcast. So I really appreciate you guys being here, watching, supporting the show. You'll never understand how much I appreciate it. Until next time, I shut up before you shut me off. Go